Most men think women want to be called baby, honey, or babe because that's what they hear in movies, on social media, or from the crowd around them. But let's be honest, how many of those relationships actually go deep? How many of those women feel emotionally safe, fully seen, or deeply cherished by the men calling them that? Not many. Why? Because words like baby or honey, when used habitually, often carry no presence. And a woman doesn't fall in love with routine. She falls in love with presence. See, the feminine craves emotional depth. She's not moved by what sounds good. She's moved by what feels true. When you call her something out of reflex, something any man could say, you're not speaking to her. You're recycling generic affection. And that might keep the surface calm, but it doesn't stir the waters of her soul. And if you're not touching her soul, you're not reaching the place where real loyalty, desire, and softness are born. A woman doesn't want to be categorized. She wants to be understood. And your language, your words, are the bridge between your presence and her heart. But if your words are mechanical, if you're saying them without real emotion behind them, she feels it. She might not say anything. She might even smile. But deep down, her body knows the difference between attention and connection. Let's go deeper. Language isn't just sound. It's energy. When you say baby without emotional presence, what she feels is detachment dressed as affection. It might be sweet, but it's hollow. The human nervous system is tuned to pick up emotional incongruence. And the feminine nervous system, it's a radar for it. She picks up on tone, inflection, body posture, your intent, not just your words. So when you speak to her, what matters most isn't just what you say. It's where you're saying it from. Now let me ask you something deeper. When was the last time you slowed down enough to speak into her, not just to her? Because when a man is rooted in himself, grounded, aware, fully present, his words carry weight. He could say something simple like, "You're my peace," and it hits her harder than 100 baby texts, not because it's poetic, but because it came from stillness, not from strategy. It came from depth, not from desperation. And that's what most men miss. They think using a cute nickname will make her feel closer. But if the nickname isn't connected to anything deeper, if it's not emotionally earned, then it doesn't anchor anything. It becomes noise. It becomes background static in a world full of men trying to sound affectionate without being authentic. This is why women respond differently when you say something that actually mirrors her impact on you. It doesn't need to be dramatic, but it needs to be felt. If she brings you peace, say so. If she brings you clarity, reflect it. If her presence grounds you, speak it. When you call her my calm, or my sanctuary, or my reason, those words don't just describe her, they affirm her. You're telling her, I see who you are, and I see what you mean to me. And the feminine responds to being seen. She softens in response to emotional clarity. She leans in when she senses that your words are not performances, but invitations. Because let me tell you this, a woman doesn't need perfect words, but she does need real ones. She needs to know that what you're saying is alive with intention, that your language is not recycled, but reverent. This is why some women melt when a man says something simple but sincere, like, I love who you are when you're free. Or I feel home around you. It's not complicated, it's connected. Those words carry emotional accuracy. They meet her where she really is. And when a man can meet her like that, even with a few words, it does something far beyond romance. It builds trust, because trust isn't built on repetition. It's built on attunement. And when your words reflect that you're attuned, not just to what she does, but to who she is, her guard starts to come down. Not because you're charming, but because you're real. And in a world where so many men perform affection without presence, the man who speaks few but true words becomes unforgettable. So if you want to win her heart, stop defaulting to the familiar. Drop the script. Drop the lazy habits. Tune in. Study her, not to manipulate, but to mirror. And then, from that still place inside you, speak what you feel. Because when a woman hears her truth echoed in your language, she doesn't just feel affection, she feels home. And once a woman feels that, she doesn't want to be anywhere else. So no, don't call her baby unless you mean it. And even then, call her something that touches her soul more than it flatters her ego. Because the words that win her heart are the ones that reach her spirit. Be that man. ChatGPT said most men still believe flattery is the golden ticket to a woman's heart. Say she's beautiful, call her babe, throw in a few compliments, and surely she'll feel special. But what men don't realize is this: women don't want to be flattered. They want to be understood. They want emotional precision, not emotional performance. And in a world that constantly objectifies and generalizes the feminine, precision is power. Here's the truth: the feminine is deeply intuitive. She hears what you don't say. She feels the tone beneath your words. And she knows when your compliments are coming from a place of effort instead of essence. That's why 1,000 "you're so sexy" comments can fall flat, while one "you make me feel calm when the world's too loud" can change everything. Because one touches her ego, the other touches her soul. Flattery, by definition, is surface level. It's usually based on external traits: how she looks, what she's wearing, what she posted. But the feminine doesn't want to feel admired like a painting. She wants to feel felt. She wants to be mirrored back in ways that make her feel safe to open, not just seen as attractive. So when a man speaks with emotional precision, when he says exactly what he feels without trying to impress, he invites her to drop her mask. And this is where everything shifts. You see, most men speak to women based on how they want her to feel about them. They use pet names and charm and sweet nothings in an attempt to gain her favor. But the men who actually win her trust, the ones she lets into her emotional world, speak to her based on how she already makes them feel. That difference is everything. Instead of saying, "you're so hot," he says, "when you speak about what you love, there's a light in your eyes that quiets everything else." Instead of calling her honey or baby, he might simply say, "you carry peace with you, like it lives in your body." These words don't flatter, they reveal. They don't perform, they penetrate. And the feminine can feel the difference. Because here's the psychological truth: the female nervous system is wired for attunement. She's scanning for safety, for resonance, for congruence between what you say and what you feel. If there's a gap, if your words don't match your energy, she won't say it outright, but her body will close. Her smile might stay, her posture might seem open, but her emotional doors quietly shut. Not because she's rude, but because her nervous system can't find rest in your presence. Emotional precision gives her nervous system what flattery never can: clarity, and clarity breeds safety. When a woman feels emotionally safe, everything inside her softens, her breath deepens, her eyes stay, her body leans in. You won't have to ask for her attention. It stays with you because your presence is offering something most men don't: and truth without manipulation. Now let's talk about what precision sounds like. It's not poetic language for the sake of sounding deep. It's about telling the truth of the moment without trying to mold it into something she'll like. It's when you say, "I don't fully understand everything about you yet, but there's something in your stillness that I trust." Or, "the way you look away when you're thinking, it's like you're listening to something the rest of us can't hear." When you speak like that, when you give her words that reflect her emotional reality, not just her physical one, she doesn't just feel desired, she feels respected. And that is what separates attention from reverence. So many men confuse attention for intimacy. But intimacy isn't built on noticing her curves. It's built on noticing her shifts. It's when you say, "you got quieter when we talked about that. What happened in you?" That's precision. That's presence. And that's what makes her feel emotionally safe enough to actually open. Here's the secret: emotional precision is not about being right. It's about being real. It's about choosing your words with care, not calculation. It's about slowing down enough to feel her, not just react to her. And when you speak from that place, your words become medicine, not noise, not decoration, medicine. Because what she wants most isn't to be adored from a distance. It's to be met right where she is. And that doesn't require poetry. It requires honesty. So if you want to stand out, if you want to stop sounding like every other man she's met, drop the flattery. Drop the surface level sweetness. Drop the habit of complimenting her hair or her dress or her body as if that's the only value she offers. Start speaking to her soul. Reflect back to her the things most people overlook. Be the man who sees her. And not just the highlight reel, the whole of her. Because at the end of the day, she won't remember the man who called her baby the most. She'll remember the man who called her home and meant it. Most men don't understand that the words they choose shape the emotional atmosphere they create. What you call her, what you name her, doesn't just describe her. It defines what you bring out of her, because language isn't neutral. It's energetic. Every name you give her, every title you assign, is either calling her higher or flattening her spirit. When you constantly call baby or babe, what you're often doing, without realizing it, is reducing her to a default romantic role. You're speaking to her as if she's interchangeable with any other woman who's ever been in that position. And deep down, she knows it. She may not say anything, but her spirit registers that she's being placed into a container that wasn't specifically built for her. It feels soft on the outside, but hollow underneath. The feminine doesn't respond to repetition. She responds to relevance. She listens for words that reflect her uniqueness, not your emotional autopilot. This is where most men fail. They think a pet name is about affection, but to the feminine, it's not just about how sweet it sounds. It's about what that name awakens inside her. Let's go deeper. The words you use for her carry intention. If you refer to her with names that reflect light, peace, depth, or radiance, her energy subtly starts to rise to match that naming. When you speak to the queen in her, the queen emerges. When you speak to her as your peace, she begins to embody peace around you. That's not manipulation. It's mirroring. And it only works when it's real, when it's grounded in truth, not in charm. A woman is always becoming in the presence of the man who names her, not because he controls her, but because language activates identity. You can see this in spiritual traditions, in cultural rituals, even in psychology. The name you give something gives it meaning. And meaning is what the feminine craves most, not performance, not titles, not roles meaning. So ask yourself this, what are you calling her into? Because your words are either calling her into more of who she is or keeping her locked in a version of herself that no longer fits. And here's what makes this even more powerful. When you use a name that's emotionally precise and spiritually aligned, it becomes safe for her to grow with you. She no longer feels like she's being labeled. She feels like she's being recognized. Recognition changes everything. This is the difference between saying you're sexy and saying you're the kind of woman who walks into a room and brings clarity without even trying. It's the difference between you're hot and you move like someone who knows exactly who she is, even when she's quiet. One is reactive, the other is reflective. And the feminine blossoms when she feels reflected, not in a shallow, performative way, but in a way that says, I see the sacred in you. This kind of language comes from emotional presence. You can't fake it. You have to actually see her, feel her, witness her beyond her appearance. That's why so many men get ignored even when they say all the right things, because those right things don't resonate. They bounce off. They don't land. But when a man is grounded in his own energy, when he speaks from a place of calm clarity, the words that come out of him land like truth. And women feel that, even in silence. There's a reason why a woman might flinch or shut down when a man calls her baby too early. It's not always because she's guarded. It's often because her body doesn't trust that the words match the moment. They weren't earned. They were assumed. And when you assume connection, instead of building it, you break trust before it even starts. But when you earn her softness, when you name her based on who she is, not what you want from her, her entire body relaxes, her spirit opens, her femininity flows more freely, not because she's being controlled, but because she's being confirmed. And every woman longs to be confirmed by a man who's not afraid to speak what he actually feels instead of what he thinks she wants to hear. This is why your language must evolve with your awareness. If you want to call her something that melts her defenses, another wasted day, don't reach popular, reach for what's true. Maybe she's your peace. Maybe she's your grounding force. Maybe she's the mirror that calls your own depth forward. Whatever she is, name her as such. And do it with reverence, because the names we use don't just describe our relationships, they define them. So stop borrowing language from men who barely understand women. Speak the words that match your energy. Speak with clarity, not performance. Speak in a way that calls her higher, not to impress her, but to honor her. Because when a woman feels named by a man who truly sees her, she remembers it for life. If there's one truth men need to accept, it's this: a woman does not give her heart to the loudest man in the room or to the one who says the most charming things. She gives her heart to the man who makes her feel emotionally safe, the man whose words don't just sound sweet, but resonate with soul. And that kind of impact doesn't come from using the typical baby, honey, or babe. It comes from choosing words that carry weight, intention, and spiritual grounding. There are 3 words, 3 expressions really, that consistently touch a woman's heart on a deeper level. My peace. My queen and my sanctuary. These are poetic titles. They are energetic acknowledgments of her sacred feminine essence. They communicate that you don't just want her body. You want to honor the atmosphere she carries. You don't just admire her appearance. You respect her presence. And that changes everything. Let's start with my peace. This one hits differently. In a world where men are constantly under pressure, expected to perform, compete, and succeed, peace is rare. Most men don't realize how loud their nervous systems have become. And when they meet a woman who helps them breathe differently, that experience is profound. But here's the key. Most women don't even know they become your peace until you tell them, until you name it. When you call her my peace, what she hears isn't just appreciation, it's confirmation. You're telling her, I don't feel the need to perform with you. I feel like I can rest. I feel like I'm enough in your presence. And let me tell you something, when a woman realizes she doesn't have to be loud, sexy, or a wasted day, or endlessly entertaining to be meaningful to you, that you value her stillness, she feels safe in a way that goes beyond words. Then there's my queen. This one has been diluted in culture, but when said with real awareness, it speaks directly to the part of her that craves reverence. Not whether worship, reverence. Women don't want to be put on a pedestal. They want to be seen in their strength and softness. They want to be mirrored in their power and vulnerability. When you call a woman my queen, and you mean it, you're saying, I see your grace, your emotional intelligence, your intuitive power, and I respect you as someone who holds herself with dignity. But it has to be real. It's just another wasted day. You don't call her a queen while treating her like an afterthought. You don't use royal language while offering peasant-level presence. The title means nothing if your energy isn't aligned with it. So when you call her my queen, it better come from a place of emotional leadership, of grounded masculinity, of knowing that you two are stepping into your king energy, not just throwing around compliments to win favor. And finally, my sanctuary. This one is for the woman whose presence calms your chaos, the one who helps you return to yourself when the world has pulled you in too many directions. The feminine, at its most powerful, creates a container of safety, not through control, but through emotional depth. When you tell her that you another wasted, you are my sanctuary, what you're really saying is, with you, I feel like I can return home to myself. You're another wasted day. You remind me of what matters. And don't think this makes you weak. On the contrary, it makes you wise. Because the strongest men are not the ones who pretend they need nothing. The strongest men are those who can recognize the value of a woman who creates stillness in a world of noise. And if she's that woman for you, you name it. You let her know. Because when a woman realizes that her energy gives you clarity and not just chemistry, she begins to trust you with parts of herself no one else gets to see. Now, here's what most men don't understand these words. My peace, my queen, my sanctuary are not just terms of endearment. They are emotional affirmations. They don't just make her feel good. They make her feel safe, chosen, and respected. And when a woman feels those three things, she's just another wasted day. She starts to open in ways that are not performative, but pure. You don't have to ask her to be more affectionate, more expressive, more loving. She becomes that naturally in the presence of real masculine security. But remember this, things you cannot call her these things if your energy is inconsistent, if your presence is shallow, or if your attention is transactional. These words require you to show up fully, to listen when she speaks, to honor her silence, to protect her spirit even in the moments when you don't understand her emotions. Because women don't need perfect men. They need present ones. So stop chasing recycled romance. Stop calling her what every man before you called her. Start calling her what her spirit longs to be reminded of. Speak to her identity, not her image. Mirror back her essence. Let your words become invitations into the highest version of herself, not because you want to control her, but because you believe in her. Because when a woman hears her soul reflected in your voice, she won't need to be convinced. She'll know she's finally been understood.